Greetings, it's your helpful housing analyst, William Leach, bringing you the important topic, scheduling uses. If you haven't already, pause the video and read the companion white paper that this video accompanies. What we're trying to do today is show you how to schedule the uses that are in your budget over the development period that you're planning. You will need to be able to schedule your uses so that you can create a draw schedule, so that you can create construction loan interest calculations. And I'm going to show you how I like to do it. As usual, I like to group my modeling into three different forms. The actual reports itself, what I want it to look nice and neat for my readers. The calculations, a down and dirty area where I can do as many calculations as I like, and an inputs area for my model users to be able to type their inputs in a convenient manner without having to worry how cute the reports, without having to worry about all the other calculations. They can work in one location conveniently. One thing the white paper talks about is using dynamic labels. You'll see at the top I have months 0, 2, 4, and so on, and I have some milestones that happen, but I don't want to keep changing these manually. I also don't want to synchronize them on the reports page as well. So what I do is I do dynamic labeling, and I come in and I make a list of milestones, a list of their abbreviations, and I say when they occur. If you scroll to the right, you'll see lease up, stabilize. These labels are based on these numbers. Watch the 50% completion as I change this from a 6 back to a 7. It moves where the label is located so that the user can remember, and so that calculations, if somebody said, hey, this structures goes from month 4 until C of O's, well, if C of O's gets changed, so does the calculation. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the individual formulas used on the calculations page. To make a little bit more room, I'm going to hide some of these rows. And we're going to start with cell A4. This column is trying to determine, actually let's give you an overview. This first column is trying to say, was the cost excluded from the budget? If you say, actually, no, we don't have to pay insurance, you want to exclude this cost from the budget. You see it came out of the budget, right? We also will want it to come out of the timing if it's excluded. So here we're trying to find out if it's excluded. We're trying to find out if the start was empty. We're trying to find out if the end date was empty. We want to know what cost we're talking about, how much the amount was, what the start was, what the end was, how many months that is, what portion of that cost belongs in each month, and then here are the individual months. How much of that cost goes in month 4, month 5, month 6. Okay, on the inputs page, we'll have our model users type in what month they want that cost to start, what month they want it to end, and if it's not a start and end concept, if it's very customized, they can leave those blank and they can put 800,000 of architecture goes in month 0. 100,000 will go in month 3, or it can go in month 14. They can do a custom breakdown rather than a linear breakdown. So back to the calcs page, talking about the individual calcs. The exclude column is trying to say, was this row of the uses table excluded? It's using the index function to say, look inside the uses exclude column, look at the third row, row A3 will result to 3. Look at the third row, and is it not empty? Right? If it has anything in it, it means it should be excluded. And right now it's saying false. No, the insurance line item is not excluded. If I did exclude it, it would say true. The insurance column is excluded. We're going to leave it active. The next column, is the start empty? False. We have a 0 in the start. The user went in and put a 0 and said, I have to pay all my insurance at the closing month. I can't do it later. I have to pay it all at closing. And the next one is trying to find out, is the end month empty? And it was empty, true. Now in this model, we're going to build it. If the end month is empty, it will copy whatever the start month is. So we need to test if the end month itself is empty. All right. We find out what the cost is. This isn't important for the calculation, but for the calculation designer to see what cost we're talking about, it goes and finds the name of the cost. This cell determines the amount of the cost, and it goes and finds that from the uses amount column in row 3 using the index function. We need to know the amount, so once we know how many months to spread it across, we can divide it and come up with an amount. Notice here structures, $8 million needs to be spread across 11 months, and so 8 million divided by 11 is 700,000. Okay, the start month is just looking up where on the uses the start column is, row 3, but it's saying put nothing here if it should be excluded. You don't want to have an excluded item, still have a start and end, and still spread monies. You want to honor the exclude concept. The end function, the end column, is doing the similar thing. It's going and finding the data from the column in the uses table on the inputs tab, saying, hey, on row 3 of that column, what did you find? And if the situation calls for it, just take F4, this green cell, which happens to be the start month. Okay, the months. The months is pretty simple. The months is take the end month minus the start month and then add 1, because 5 minus 1 would be 4, but it's still 5 months. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you add 1. And if there's an error, just go ahead and put a number 1 here. All right, the portion. The portion is also a simple calculation. It's saying, as long as I'm supposed to be focused on this cost, i.e. it isn't exclude empty and it isn't start empty, then go ahead and take my amount and divide it by my months. Items that are occurred in one single month just get divided by 1. 150,000 divided by 1. Okay, now I use the technique where I multiply a number times a logical function so that the number will turn to 0 if the logical function is false. You'll see more about that in the white paper. Okay, and then last but not least, the big calculation. I need a calculation. Now normally I wouldn't do it here, I would really do it up here. But I need a calculation that I can drag as far down as I want, I can drag as far to the right as I want, and it will fill in how much soft cost is in month 0, how much architecture is in month 0, how much architecture is in month 1, month 2, month 3. I need to know every single month, every single line item, exactly how much goes in that month. If we quickly unhide the rows, you'll notice we have certain costs that get spread from 7 to 15, some from 14 to 4, some are in individual months, and some just land in a single month, 250,000 of loan fees at closing. We need to know this at a granular level so we can report to our construction lender and so we can build a draw schedule. Okay, but instead of walking through what this monstrous calculation is doing, let's instead go through and say, how would you design this calculation if you were going to do it from scratch? Well, the easiest way to start is to hop over to Microsoft Word and start describing for yourself what you want to achieve with the function. So we have 2 different methods. We either want to calculate the cost for that month if we use the start method or if we use the custom method. Okay, and how do we know if it's the start method? It's going to be if start month is empty, then do something. Otherwise, do custom. And then we'll end our if statement. Right? Okay, so we've got now 2 tiers. We can, oops, we use this if function, and if it's true that start month is empty, then we will do the custom method. If otherwise, if start month isn't empty, we'll do the start method. Okay, so, but wait, let's also think about the fact that we also need to honor the exclusion. So if it's not excluded, then we'll go ahead and do this test. Otherwise, and if excluded. Otherwise, we really don't want to do anything, right? So also we need to protect, hey, wait a minute, we need to protect if there's errors. If it's not an error, right, because in our model, sometimes there aren't enough rows. The calculation says, hey, I couldn't find a 13th row. What do you want me to do? There's an error. So we don't want errors to go forward. And so we say, hey, if it's not an error, then go ahead and do all this stuff. And we will end the if for errors, right? So let's nest this stuff deeper in. We're building a nested if statement. If this, keep going. If not, leave. If start month is empty, do the custom method. Otherwise, do the regular method. Okay, so we have a structure of nested if statements that we're going to need. Now let's go ahead and talk about the custom method itself. How would you do the custom method? Well, you're going to end up using the index function to look up the amount that was specified for that month, right? Remember how architecture was specified exactly 800 for month 0 and exactly 100,000 for month 3. We will want to sniff these exact amounts out, so we will index these individual columns and find our values. And how about the start method? In the start method, actually, we need to do another test inside of the start method. We need to know, does the month in question, let's say month 3, does it fall within the range of the months? Does it fall between 4 and 14? If it doesn't, we don't want to see anything here. If it does, then we'll show a value. So we're going to need an if statement in here. So we'll say if that month is in the range, then get the monthly amount. And if in range. So we're going to nest this even deeper. So let's say, okay, we've got another if statement. So just for clarity, let's go ahead and color code some of these. There's our yellow if statement. Whoops. We'll do this one as our green if statement. Our start month. Man, my aim's off. Start month will be purple. And then inside of the start month, we have if we're in the range, right? So we've got 4 if statements nested inside of each other, and we're going to develop this function. So I'm just going to copy this down below, and we'll start typing over this. Okay, so first we're going to do equals the if error function is a simple way to test if something is an error. Then if the error lets you have a bunch of information as a parameter, and then you end it by saying comma what you want to show if it's an error. I'm going to do comma 0. Show a 0 if there's an error. All right, how do we say if it's not excluded? Okay, so here we're going to do a regular if function, and we're going to say not $A2. The not function will turn A2 the opposite. If it's true, it'll turn it false. If it's false, it'll turn it true. And A2 is our exclude column. So is the exclude column true or false? Okay, if it's true, turn it to false. If it's false, turn it to true. So if it is true, it'll do all this stuff. Okay, if it's blank, it'll do all this stuff. If it is not blank, then we want comma 0. We'll have this. If it should be excluded, put a 0. All right, how about if the start month is empty? It's going to be very similar to this one. We're going to go if and we're going to say money sign F2. The money sign is necessary because when I use the autocomplete feature and I drag it to the right, I need the F to stay the same because it's in the F column that you'll find the information about the start month. So if F2 is equal to nothing, now I want you to notice when I typed in these quotes, it made them curly quotes. So I'm going to hit undo, so it puts them straight quotes. Undo again, Control Z, so it puts them back at straight quotes. So if F2 is equal to nothing, then go ahead and use the custom method of looking for the specific dates. Otherwise, in the if function, it's just a comma. And how we're going to end this, we're just going to end it with a parenthesis because we have a, if it's false, this is the part that's going to happen. And we have, if it's true, this is what's going to happen. All right, so now we need to build the actual go get the numbers. Everything so far has just been, if it's an error, make it 0. If it should be excluded, make it 0. And if it's start month is empty, use one method or use the other method. Actually, we're not done. Let's talk about the if it's in the range. So in this, we're going to need to test for two ranges. So we're going to need to say if, we're going to use the AND function. You need to be both after the start and before the end. It can't be just either one. So it's going to be and we're going to do J money sign 1 is greater than or equal to money sign F2. Okay, this is going to check J money sign 1. If you sneak over here, J money sign 1 is going to say month 0. You see this month up here? If month 0 is greater than or equal to the start month. Okay, this F money sign 2 right here, the start months. Okay, so that's what we're testing. If that is greater than or equal, it's okay if it's the same as the start month. It just can't be less than the start month because then it hasn't really started. Right? Then the next test we're going to do inside of the AND function, so both have to be true, is J money sign 1 again, that 0 month is less than or equal to money sign G2. Right? So money sign G2 is the end month. Right? We need to make sure that the month in question, 0, which when we drag it to the right, it'll go 0, 1, 2, but the month in question needs to be after the start and before the end. Okay, so we have both of our tests inside of an AND function, so they have to both be true. For the if statement, we need a comma to go from the logical test to the if true, and so at the very end, we're going to go comma 0 for the if false. If it's not within the range, then we're not going to show an amount. Okay, now we're left with getting the actual amounts, right? So here's our actual amount, and here's going to be the index function that looks up the custom amounts. All right, let's start with the index function. We're going to do index, and we're going to look up the uses 0M column. Okay, just for a reminder, on the inputs page, it was called 0M, 1M, 2M. These are the names of our columns. So we're going to look in the uses 0M column, and we want to know the row money sign A1. Okay, row money sign A1 is going to resolve to row A1. A1 is in the first row. So it's going to say, go find me what's in the uses 0M column in the first row. That's what this index is going to do. Okay, so we'll close our parenthesis for the index function and say that's going to go and get us the exact amount in row 1, column 0M. All right, now let's talk about if we are spreading the cost amongst 1 month or multiple months. We didn't use the custom method, and we did find that this cell is within the appropriate range. So now we need to go get that amount that we calculated. Well, that one's easy. It's just I2, right? In the calcs page, the I column, we calculated the portion, and it would be I2. So whenever you make your formula, we're designing it for to be in the top left cell so we can drag it down and then drag it to the right using the autocomplete feature. So we now have our full formula. Now we would be remiss to copy paste this directly into the formula itself because it'd be hard to read. You'd have to really open this up to be able to read the formula, right? And so instead of doing it that way, we're just going to get it all to come down to a single line. And so what we're going to do, we're going to cheat here. We're going to Microsoft Word, and I apologize, some of this is off the screen a little bit for you. We're going to highlight all of it. We're going to hit Control Find. And let me drag this to the right so you can see it. When you do Control Find, it puts the entire text. It thinks I'm looking for that text somewhere else in the document in here, and it highlights it for you automatically. I'm going to hit Control Copy, copy that to the clipboard, go over to my formula, and I'm going to paste it. Boom. Now, if I drag it down, I don't want to because I'll mess up. Well, I'll drag it down anyway because I'll mess up that conditional formatting. And then I can drag it to the right all the way to month 36. And voila. There we have it. One cell that when dragged down and dragged to the right with the autocomplete feature will calculate the exact amount that is necessary for that cost in that month if done the custom method, or for that cost in that month if it's spread evenly from one period to the next. You use these calculations to print out a nice clean report, and I pray this financial modeling example proves helpful to you in delivering housing to Californians. God bless.